Captain John Reynolds stood on the observation deck of Luna Base Alpha, watching as the massive vessel emerged from the orbital shipyard. The U.S. Enterprise D gleamed in the sunlight, its hull reflecting the distant Earth like a mirror against the void of space. At nearly 2 kilometers long, it was the largest warship humanity had ever constructed. Magnificent, isn't she? Admiral William Hayes stepped beside Reynolds, his weathered face showing pride. Hard to believe we built something like that, Reynolds replied, shaking his head in awe. The Enterprise D had been commissioned after the Proxima Centauri incident, when humanity realized they weren't alone in the galaxy and that not all their cosmic neighbors were friendly. The ship represented humanity's determination to never again be caught unprepared. 17 fusion reactors, Hayes said, gesturing toward the enormous vessel. Enough power to run a small continent. The adaptive shield technology can withstand impacts that would vaporize a 20th-century city. And the main cannon. He paused, his voice dropping. Well, let's just say it could crack a small moon. Reynolds had been selected to command this behemoth, a responsibility that weighed heavily on him. 10,000 crew members would serve under him, operating the most advanced weapon systems ever developed by human hands. The Enterprise D wasn't just a warship, it was humanity's statement to the stars. We will not go quietly. 3 days later, as Reynolds walked through the Central Command Hub for the first time, his executive officer, Commander Maria Miller, handed him the activation codes. Engineering reports all systems nominal, Captain. Weapons are online, and the new quantum navigation system has been calibrated. Reynolds nodded, feeling the weight of the captain's chair as he sat down. Prepare for departure sequence. The Enterprise hummed to life around them, power flowing through conduits that could have encircled Earth twice. On the tactical display, Reynolds could see the location of every vessel within a light year, a feat impossible just a decade earlier. Captain, the communications officer called out, we're receiving an emergency transmission from Outpost 7. Reynolds tensed. Outpost 7 was the furthest human settlement, established as an early warning system against potential threats. Put it through. The message was fragmented, distorted by distance and interference. Unknown vessels, massive energy signatures, not responding to hails, estimated arrival at Earth in 72 hours. A chill ran through the command center. The Enterprise D hadn't even completed its shakedown cruise. Sound General Quarters, Reynolds ordered, his voice steady despite the hammering of his heart. Plot and intercept course. All crew to battle stations. As alarms blared throughout the massive ship, Reynolds shared a look with Miller. They both knew what this meant. The Enterprise D would face its trial by fire much sooner than anyone had anticipated. Sir, the weapons officer reported, main cannon charged and ready. Point defense systems online. Adaptive shields at maximum. Reynolds nodded grimly. Take us out. Full military thrust. Let's show them what humanity can do. As the Enterprise D broke orbit, its massive engines flaring like newborn stars, it carried with it the hopes and fears of 8 billion souls. It was more than a warship. It was humanity's declaration that they would not surrender the stars without a fight. The deadliest ship humanity had ever built was heading to war. The year was 2552, and Commander Thomas West couldn't tear his eyes away from the viewport as the massive form of the UNSC Infinity cut through slip space like a knife through dark water. At 5.7 kilometers from bow to stern, the Infinity made even the legendary Enterprise D look like a patrol boat. You never get used to it, said Lieutenant James Foster, stepping up beside West. No matter how many times you see her. West nodded silently. The Infinity represented humanity's response to near extinction. After the brutal Covenant War that had claimed billions of lives and glassed entire worlds, humanity had resolved to build something that could stand against any threat. And what they built was nothing short of miraculous. The Infinity was powered by Forerunner technology, ancient alien science that humanity had barely begun to understand. Its shield system could withstand direct hits from energy projectors that would vaporize lesser vessels. Its main MAC cannons, magnetic accelerator cannons, could accelerate 30-ton tungsten/depleted uranium slugs to a fraction of the speed of light, delivering kinetic energy equivalent to multiple nuclear weapons. But what truly made the Infinity deadly wasn't just its size or weaponry, it was its ability to deploy smaller vessels. The ship carried 10 frigates in internal bays, each one a formidable warship in its own right. It was a carrier, a battleship, and a mobile fortress combined into one overwhelming package. "Commander, west to the bridge," came the announcement over the ship's comm. "Priority Alpha." West exchanged a look with Foster before hurrying to the nearest transit tube. 5 minutes later, he was on the bridge, standing before Admiral Rebecca Thompson. "We've received a distress call from Colony Reach I," Thompson said without preamble. "Unknown hostiles have breached the outer system. The colony's defenses are holding for now, but they need immediate reinforcement." West frowned. "Reach II is one of our most heavily fortified colonies. If something's breaking through—" "Exactly," Thompson replied grimly. "Whatever it is, it's not something we've encountered before." The bridge hummed with activity as the crew prepared for battle. West moved to his tactical station, bringing up holographic displays of the Infinity's weapon systems. "Prepare to exit slip space," Thompson ordered. "All hands to battle stations. Deploy Spartan fire teams to defensive positions." The Spartans, genetically enhanced super soldiers in powered assault armor, were the Infinity's elite shock troops. A single Spartan could turn the tide of a ground battle. A team of them could devastate an enemy force. The ship shuddered slightly as it tore a hole back into normal space. Immediately, the tactical display lit up with contacts. "Dear God," someone whispered. A swarm of biomechanical ships surrounded Reach II, their organic forms pulsing with sickly green energy. Hundreds of them, each the size of a pre-war destroyer. "Multiple hostiles detected," the sensor officer reported. "They're altering course to intercept us." West watched as Thompson's face hardened into resolute determination. "Target the lead vessels with NAC cannons 1 through 4, she ordered. "Launch broadsword squadrons for close support. Deploy frigates Echo through Lima to establish a defensive perimeter around the colony." The Infinity came alive, its massive weapon systems charging. The ship's eye, Minerva, appeared on the holographic projector. "MEN-AC systems charge," she reported, her voice calm amidst the mounting tension. "Firing solution plotted." "Fire," Thompson commanded. 4 streaks of hyper-accelerated metal tore through space, each impact releasing energy equivalent to a small tactical nuclear weapon. The lead alien vessels simply ceased to exist, transformed into expanding clouds of superheated plasma and debris. The battle had begun, and the UNSC Infinity, humanity's mightiest warship, was doing what it was built to do: ensure humanity's survival in a hostile universe. As the remaining alien ships adjusted their approach, West felt a grim pride. Whatever these things were, they were about to learn a harsh lesson about humanity's refusal to be extinguished. Admiral Mark Anderson stood rigid on the CIC of the Battlestar Galactica, his eyes fixed on the DRADI's console as it tracked the approaching Cylon base ships. After 50 years of uneasy peace, the ancient enemy had returned with a vengeance. Multiple radiological alarms called out the tactical officer, his voice tight with tension. "They're arming nuclear missiles." Anderson nodded grimly. The Galactica was the last of the original 12 battlestars, kept in service long past her intended decommissioning date. While newer ships relied on networked computers and automated defense systems, the Galactica was purposely designed with isolated systems, a precaution against the Cylon's legendary ability to infiltrate computer networks. "Launch Vipers, all squadrons," Anderson ordered. "Bring main batteries to bear on the lead base ship. Prepare flak screen." The massive ship shuddered as its point defense weapons began firing, creating a deadly field of shrapnel that would tear apart any incoming missiles. The Galactica's design philosophy was brutally simple: thick armor, overwhelming firepower, and the ability to absorb punishment that would destroy lesser vessels. Captain Emily Grant, the ship's XO, moved to Anderson's side. "Engineering reports the FTL drives are spooled and ready for emergency jump," she said quietly. "Just say the word." Anderson shook his head. "We don't run. Not today." He pointed to the tactical display, where the colonization fleet was shown escaping to the jump coordinates. "We hold until every civilian ship is away." The Galactica was over a kilometer long, with armor plating meters thick in places. Its main batteries consisted of massive railguns that could fire shells the size of buses, with pinpoint accuracy across vast distances. But what made the Battlestar truly formidable was its complement of Viper fighters, space superiority craft piloted by the best pilots humanity had to offer. "First wave of nuclear missiles incoming," the tactical officer announced. "Impact in 30 seconds. Flak barrier at maximum intensity," Grant ordered. "Brace for impact." The space around the Galactica erupted as the flak cannons created a wall of destruction. Incoming missiles detonated prematurely, their nuclear fury expended harmlessly in space. "Base ships moving to surround us," the DRADIS operator reported. Anderson studied the display, noting the enemy's formation. "They think they've got us boxed in," he said with a grim smile. "Helm, on my mark, full burn, heading 145 Karam 33. We're going right down their throat." Grant looked at him in surprise. "Sir, that will put us within point-blank range of 2 base ships." "Exactly," Anderson replied. "Main batteries, target the port base ship. All available Vipers, clear us a path through their fighter screen." The CIC fell silent as the crew processed the audacious plan. The Galactica, for all its might, was still one ship against many. "All civilian ships away," the communications officer announced. "Jump signatures confirmed. The fleet is clear." Anderson nodded. "Now it's our turn to show these toasters what a Battlestar can do. Execute maneuver." The massive ship lurched as its engines fired at full power, driving it straight toward the Cylon formation. The main batteries opened fire, each round striking with devastating force. The first base ship buckled under the assault, its central axis shattering as the Galactica's shells tore through critical systems. "Radiological alarm," the tactical officer shouted. "Multiple nuclear detonations, close range." The Galactica shuddered violently as nuclear weapons detonated against its armor. Damage reports flooded in, but the old Battlestar absorbed the punishment and continued its attack run. "Second base ship in range," Grant reported. "Main batteries reloaded." "Fire," Anderson commanded. Another devastating barrage erupted from the Galactica's main guns, shredding the second base ship as the Battlestar punched through the Cylon formation, creating a gap in their encirclement. Anderson allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. "Spool up FTL," he ordered. "Let's join our fleet." As the Galactica prepared to jump away, leaving devastation in its wake, Anderson reflected on the ship's legacy. She wasn't the newest, the fastest, or even the most advanced warship humanity had built. But in terms of sheer resilience and fighting spirit, the Battlestar Galactica was perhaps the deadliest ship to ever carry the banner of humanity among the stars. Fleet Admiral David Mitchell watched through the quantum viewport as the U.S. Titan emerged from the dimensional fold, its impossibly sleek hull seeming to absorb rather than reflect the light of the nearby binary stars. At just under 3 kilometers in length, the Titan wasn't the largest vessel in humanity's arsenal, but it was by far the most lethal. "Dimensional transition complete," reported the ship's AI, Athena, her holographic form materializing beside Mitchell. "All systems nominal. The Titan is combat ready." Unlike the warships that came before it, the Titan represented a paradigm shift in naval warfare. Built using technology reverse-engineered from a dozen different alien civilizations, it was the first human vessel capable of manipulating the fundamental forces of the universe as weapons. Status of the Arcturus outpost, Mitchell asked, his attention fixed on the tactical display. Lieutenant Robert Jackson, the tactical officer, frowned at his console. No response to our hails. Admiral, orbital platforms are offline. We're detecting massive energy fluctuations on the planet's surface. The Arcturus colony had gone silent 3 days ago. The Titan, stationed 12 light-years away, was the closest military vessel capable of responding. Deploy sensor drones, Mitchell ordered. I want a full tactical assessment before we commit. The Titan's primary weapon system wasn't its impressive array of conventional armaments, though those alone could devastate a small fleet. Rather, it was the Singularity Forge, a device capable of creating and manipulating artificial black holes. The weapon could tear apart enemy ships at the subatomic level or create impenetrable defenses by warping space-time around the Titan. Drones deployed, Jackson confirmed. Initial telemetry coming in now. The tactical display shifted, showing high-resolution images of the Arcturus system. Mitchell's blood ran cold at what he saw. Are those harvesters? Jackson confirmed grimly. At least 30 of them in orbit. Ground forces are already deployed across the main continent. The harvesters were a nomadic species that consumed all organic material on planets they conquered, leaving barren husks behind. Humanity had encountered them only once before, at the Battle of Proxima Centauri, where 3 dreadnoughts and their support fleets had been lost, stopping a force half this size. How many survivors? Mitchell asked quietly. Athena's expression was solemn. Based on heat signatures and communication bursts, approximately 30,000 colonists have taken refuge in the underground bunkers. Harvester ground forces are attempting to breach the main defensive positions. Mitchell turned to his executive officer, Commander Ana Martinez. Prepare a rescue operation. I want Marine strike teams ready for immediate deployment to the primary bunker locations. The harvesters have already detected us, Jackson reported. Their orbital forces are moving to intercept. Mitchell nodded, having expected as much. Charge the Singularity Forge. Target their command vessel. The Titan hummed as power flowed through its systems, channeling energy into the ship's primary weapon. On the bridge, officers watched their displays in tense silence, knowing what was about to happen. Singularity Forge at full charge, Athena announced. Target locked. Fire, Mitchell ordered. There was no visible beam, no spectacular explosion. Just a sudden distortion in space as a microscopic black hole formed inside the Harvester command ship. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The massive vessel imploded, collapsing inward as matter was compressed to infinite density. The remaining Harvester ships reacted immediately, launching a barrage of exotic particle weapons toward the Titan. Defensive singularities deployed, Athena reported calmly as several small black holes materialized around the Titan, capturing and absorbing the incoming fire. Launch fighters, Mitchell commanded. Target their propulsion systems. I want those ships disabled, not destroyed. We need prisoners for interrogation. The Titan's hangar bays opened, disgorging squadrons of Wraith fighters. Small, agile craft equipped with their own miniaturized versions of the ship's dimension warping technology. As the battle unfolded, Mitchell knew the Titan would prevail. It wasn't just the technology that made the ship so formidable. It was the culmination of centuries of human ingenuity, the embodiment of humanity's refusal to accept extinction as an option. Ground teams deployed, Martins reported. They'd reached the first bunker complex. Evacuation underway. Mitchell nodded in satisfaction. The U.S. Titan wasn't just a weapon of war. It was a symbol of humanity's commitment to protecting its own, no matter the cost. In that respect, it carried on the proud tradition of every great warship that had come before it. Dr. Lisa Harper stepped through the quantum entanglement chamber onto the observation deck of Nexus Station, the massive research facility orbiting the supermassive black hole at the galactic core. Behind her, Admiral Peter Collins materialized, his uniform bearing the insignia of the United Human Systems, a government spanning thousands of worlds across 3 spiral arms of the Milky Way. "Is it ready?" Collins asked without preamble. Harper nodded, gesturing toward the colossal shipyard extending from the station. "The prototype is complete. The HSS Ascendant is ready for its first trial run." Unlike the battleships and dreadnoughts of earlier eras, the Ascendant represented something entirely new. At a mere 500 meters in length, it was small compared to the massive warships of the past. But size was no longer the measure of a vessel's power. The Ascendant incorporates 3 major technological breakthroughs, Harper explained as they walked toward the viewing platform. First, the temporal displacement drive allows it to exist partially outside normal spacetime, making it virtually immune to conventional weapons. Collins nodded. After centuries of warfare against various alien threats, humanity had learned that bigger wasn't always better. Adaptability and innovation were the true keys to survival. Second, Harper continued, the consciousness integration system allows the ship's AI to merge directly with the captain's mind, creating a symbiotic relationship that enables reaction times measured in picoseconds. "And the weapon system?" Collins asked. His voice hushed. Harper paused, choosing her words carefully. "The quantum dissonance cannon. It doesn't destroy targets in the conventional sense. Rather, it removes them from our reality entirely. They simply cease to exist in this universe." Collins frowned. "The ethical implications have been thoroughly discussed by the Ethics Council," Harper interrupted. "The weapon can only be activated with the consensus of both the captain and the AI, with multiple redundant safeguards." They reached the observation window, where the Ascendant was visible, its hull composed of a material that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal, refracting light in impossible ways. "Captain Taylor is already aboard," Harper said. "The neural link was established this morning." As if on cue, the communications panel chimed. "This is Captain Michael Taylor of the HSS Ascendant," came a voice that seemed to resonate on multiple frequencies simultaneously. "Pre-launch checks complete. Requesting permission to begin trial run." Collins stepped forward. "Permission granted, Captain. Godspeed." The Ascendant detached from its moorings, but instead of conventional thrusters firing, the space around the ship seemed to fold. In an instant, it had moved 10,000 kilometers away without appearing to traverse the intervening space. "Temporal displacement drive functioning nominally," Taylor reported, moving to weapons test range. Harper led Collins to a different window, this one facing a field of derelict hulks, abandoned alien warships collected for testing purposes. The Ascendant reappeared near the field, its hull now pulsing with subtle patterns of energy. "Target locked," Taylor announced. "Charging quantum dissonance cannon." A derelict Vorkan battleship, once the pride of an empire that had threatened humanity a century earlier, floated silently in space. The massive vessel, over 2 kilometers long, had survived countless battles before being captured. The Ascendant's hull patterns intensified, coalescing around what appeared to be an aperture at its bow. There was no visible beam, no explosion. The Vorkan battleship simply vanished. One moment it existed. The next it was gone, leaving not even debris behind. "Target removed from this dimensional plane," Taylor reported, his voice betraying no emotion. "Weapon functioning within expected parameters." Collins exhaled slowly. "It's not just a weapon, is it? It's a whole new approach to warfare." Harper nodded. "The Ascendant represents our response to the multiversal incursion. Conventional weapons, even the black hole generators of the Titan class, proved ineffective against entities that exist across multiple realities simultaneously. And you believe this will be enough?" Harper's expression was solemn. "The Ascendant is merely the prototype. The full production class will incorporate additional systems currently in development. By the time the next incursion begins, we'll have a fleet of them." As they watched the Ascendant continue its trials, Harper reflected on the journey that had brought humanity to this point. From the early days of the Enterprise D to the reality-bending capabilities of the Ascendant, Humans had continuously adapted and evolved their approach to warfare. Yet the fundamental purpose remained unchanged: the protection of humanity against a hostile universe. The forms and technologies might change, but the indomitable spirit that drove their creation remained constant. The HSS Ascendant represented not just the pinnacle of human military technology, but also humanity's unwavering determination to survive, no matter what horrors the universe might unleash upon them. Commander Alex Mason stood on the bridge of the HSS Phoenix, gazing at the holographic display of what had once been Earth. Where the cradle of humanity had once orbited the sun, there was now only a debris field. Asteroids and dust that had once been continents, oceans, and the birthplace of human civilization. "It's been 50 years, said his executive officer, Lieutenant Commander Diana Wells. Yet it still doesn't seem real." Mason nodded silently. The fall of Earth, as it was now called in the history books, had changed everything. The surprise attack by the Void Collective had destroyed humanity's homeworld in hours, despite the combined efforts of Earth's defensive fleet. But humans, scattered across hundreds of colony worlds, had survived. And they had built the Phoenix in response. Unlike previous warships designed for combat against material enemies, the Phoenix was designed to fight something far more insidious. The Void Collective wasn't a conventional alien species. It was a sentient vacuum, an entity that existed in the spaces between matter, capable of unraveling physical reality itself. "Void activity detected," announced the sensor officer, her voice steady despite the implications. "Dimensional thinning at coordinates 345 by 127. "Battle stations," Mason ordered, watching as the bridge crew snapped into action. "Charge the reality anchors." The Phoenix was unique among human warships. Its primary systems weren't weapons in the traditional sense, but rather devices designed to reinforce the fabric of reality itself. The ship could generate fields that forced quantum probability to conform to specific patterns, denying the Void Collective its primary advantage. "Reality anchors at full charge," reported the weapons officer. "Quantum stabilization field ready for deployment." "Deploy anchor network," Mason commanded. "Establish a perimeter around the thinning." From the Phoenix, dozens of small drones launched, each carrying a miniaturized reality anchor. They formed a geometric pattern around the area where sensors detected the dimensional boundary weakening. "Network established," Wells confirmed. "Quantum field stabilizing." But even as the words left her mouth, the void breach expanded dramatically. The sensor display flashed warnings as multiple rifts appeared within the established perimeter. "They've adapted," Mason realized, a chill running down his spine. "They're using the new breach pattern." In response to humanity's defenses, the Void Collective had evolved its attack methods. It was the eternal dance of measure and countermeasure that had defined warfare since the dawn of conflict. "Deploy Phase 2 countermeasures," Mason ordered. "Prepare the consciousness cannon." The consciousness cannon was the Phoenix's true secret weapon, a device that could project human thought patterns into the void, creating a framework of logic and emotion that the collective found difficult to penetrate. It required a human operator directly interfaced with the ship's systems, essentially projecting their consciousness as a weapon. "I'll do it," Wells volunteered, moving toward the neural interface chamber. Mason caught her arm. "No, I'm the captain. This is my responsibility." Before she could protest, he had entered the chamber. The neural interfaces descended, connecting with the implants in his skull. Mason gasped as his consciousness expanded, suddenly encompassing the entire ship, then stretching outward toward the void breach. He could feel them now, the entities of the collective, alien beyond comprehension. Their thoughts, if they could be called that, were patterns of nothingness, the antithesis of human consciousness. Mason projected his memories, his emotions, his very humanity into the breach. He thought of Earth as it had been: blue oceans, green continents, the birthplace of art and music and literature. He thought of loss and love, of courage and sacrifice, of all the things that made humans what they were. The void entities recoiled from this assault of being, this forceful imposition of existence upon their non-existence. On the bridge, Wells watched the sensor displays as the void breaches began to shrink, collapsing in upon themselves as Mason's consciousness forced them closed. "It's working," the sensor officer reported. Void activity decreasing by 78%, 82%, 95%. When Mason emerged from the neural chamber, he was pale and shaking, but his eyes held a fierce determination. "They're retreating for now," he said, lowering himself carefully into the captain's chair. "But they'll be back. They always come back." The Phoenix continued its lonely patrol of Earth's remains, guardian of humanity's birthplace, even in destruction. Not the largest or most heavily armed ship humanity had ever built, but perhaps the most important, a vessel designed not just to destroy enemies, but to preserve the very fabric of reality itself. As Mason looked again at the holographic representation of Earth's debris field, he made the same silent promise he renewed each day, that as long as the Phoenix flew, humanity would never forget where they came from, or what they were fighting for. Grand Admiral Eleanor Richards stood in the dimensional observatory of the HSS Transcendence, watching as reality itself seemed to fold around the massive vessel. At 20 kilometers in length, the Transcendence was the largest ship humanity had ever constructed, though ship hardly seemed an adequate description for what it truly was. "Final preparations complete," reported Fleet Captain Jason Wright, his neural implants pulsing softly with blue light as he communicated directly with the ship's systems. "The dimensional drive is charged and ready." Richards nodded, her eyes fixed on the display showing their target. A massive spatial anomaly at the edge of the Milky Way galaxy, a tear in reality that had been growing for decades. Scientists called it the Omega Breach, a wound in the universe that threatened not just humanity, but all existence in their reality. The Transcendence was humanity's answer to this existential threat. Unlike traditional warships designed to fight enemy vessels, the Transcendence was built to battle reality itself, to repair the fundamental damage to the cosmic framework before it collapsed entirely. "Begin final countdown," Richards ordered. "All personnel to secure stations." Throughout the enormous vessel, over 50,000 crew members, scientists, engineers, soldiers, and specialists from 100 human worlds, prepared for the most ambitious mission in history. "You know there's no guarantee we can come back," Wright said quietly, standing beside Richards at the observation window. "Even with all our technology, once we cross through the breach." "I know," Richards replied. Everyone aboard volunteered knowing this might be a one-way journey. The Transcendence wasn't merely a ship. It was a self-contained civilization, designed to survive indefinitely if necessary. It carried entire ecosystems, manufacturing facilities capable of producing anything from microchips to medicines, and energy generation systems that could power a small planet. "Dimensional drive activating," announced the ship's eye. "Prometheus. Breach point established. Transit window opening in 30 seconds." Richards turned to address the bridge crew one last time. "For 300 years, humanity has faced threats that should have extinguished us. The Cylon War, the Harvester invasion, the Void Collective. Each time, we survived by building vessels that could match and exceed our enemies' capabilities." She gestured toward the looming breach on the main display. "But this enemy cannot be defeated with conventional weapons. We cannot shoot it, bomb it, or intimidate it with superior firepower. This time, our greatest weapon is our understanding, our ability to comprehend the fabric of reality itself and repair what has been torn." The ship shuddered slightly as the dimensional drive reached full power. Around them, space began to warp, the stars seeming to bend as the Transcendence prepared to cross the threshold into whatever lay beyond the Omega Breach. 5 seconds to transition," Prometheus announced. 4, 3, 2, 1. Reality itself seemed to fracture around them. For a moment that stretched into eternity, every person aboard the Transcendence experienced the impossible sensation of existing in multiple states simultaneously, of being everywhere and nowhere, of seeing every possibility that had ever existed or could exist. Then, suddenly, they were through. The view that greeted them defied description. They had emerged into what appeared to be the space between universes, a void filled with swirling colors and energies that had never been witnessed by human eyes. In the distance, visible only through the ship's specialized sensors, other realities floated like soap bubbles in a cosmic bath. And there, at the center of this impossible space, was the source of the Omega Breach, a colossal entity of pure energy, its form constantly shifting between states of matter and energy that shouldn't have been able to coexist. "My God," whispered Wright. "It's alive." Richard stared at the entity, understanding dawning. It's not an invasion or an attack. It's dying. And as it dies, it's tearing holes in the membrane between realities. The scientific teams worked frantically, analyzing the data pouring in from the ship's sensors. Hours passed as theories were proposed, debated, and discarded. Finally, Dr. Marcus Chen, the chief physicist, approached Richards with a proposed solution. "We can save it," he said, his voice hushed with awe. "The Transcendence's primary systems, if we reconfigure them to channel energy rather than weapons fire, we can stabilize the entity." "At what cost?" Richards asked, already suspecting the answer. Chen's expression was grave. "The ship would have to remain here, permanently. We would need to establish a continuous energy transfer to maintain stability." Richards looked around at her crew, seeing the determination in their faces. This was what humanity had been building toward for centuries, not conquest or domination, but understanding. The ability to reach out across the gulf of incomprehension and offer aid, even to an entity so alien it defied human categorization. "Begin the reconfiguration," she ordered. "Prepare for permanent deployment." As the Transcendence's systems were repurposed from weapons of war to instruments of healing, Richards reflected on the journey that had brought humanity to this point. From the Enterprise D to the Galactica, from the Infinity to the Phoenix, each great warship had been built in response to a threat, designed to ensure humanity's survival. But the Transcendence represented something more, the evolution from mere survival to a deeper purpose. It had been built as humanity's greatest warship, but its true destiny was to become a bridge between realities, a testament to the idea that understanding could be more powerful than destruction. As the energy transfer began, connecting the ship to the dying cosmic entity, Richards knew that this, more than any battle ever fought, would be humanity's greatest legacy among the stars.